Welcome to the Voice of St. Anthony Parish from Allston, Massachusetts, right here on WROL 950 AM 100.3 FM. And you can also hear us at CatholicAudiomedia.com. That's CatholicAudiomedia.com. A quick program note, we are going to run our series this week with our interview with Jim Sano. So our conversation with Alfred Mira will be transferred to Friday of this week, so you hear them on Friday. So in the meantime, we are continuing our conversation with Jim Sano, the author of the book, The Father's Son, all about his process of writing this book that is used as a way of evangelizing in the faith. And let's see what he has to tell us. What was your process in coming up with the characters?
I had thought about writing a book when I was a teenager. I thought it'd be neat. It'd probably be never published. And I couldn't think of a story for 30 years. And there was nothing more profound to me than, that journey that the main character in this book takes, where you come from brokenness and you go on that kind of that psychological and faith journey to wholeness. And we don't do it alone. There's a deep friendship in the book that is central to it. And I had listened to one of your interviews with John Cutterback, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Friendship.
Yeah.
And I saw a lot of that was in here in this journey of friendship. There's an unexpected friendship that comes up. And there's a lot of things about the Boston aspect of it and going back into the past. I wanted to make it interesting and things that, I enjoy. So the sports and the crime aspect of it were interesting, and the mystery and the characters that were in there. So, I knew what the arc of the story was going to be, but, as I went into it, I was just really felt like it was an experience of the Holy Spirit guiding this. So characters showed up I hadn't expected to be in there. The story took different, different roads that I hadn't planned on. It just kind of evolved as I was writing it. So I have to give much more credit to Holy Spirit than myself in coming up with the story, and also to Mary for publishing it. I was looking for a publisher, and Catholic fiction isn't something that's greatly supported by a lot of publishers that are out there. They'll do children's fiction, they'll do a lot of nonfiction, and there's just wonderful resources out there for nonfiction. But I found that a lot of people, until they kind of start down that road, aren't going to dig up the nonfiction resources. They're not like on that path yet. So if you can bring them into a story that they find interesting enough to pull them through, and then you weave into that story, the fullness of the faith in a way that is, it says this really is what life is about versus something to the side, like I said. So it kind of evolved as it went through. I knew I had a sense of this main character that was, he had a trauma as a child. He had learned to cope through going after achievement and success, and he certainly achieved that in spades. I have a nephew that was about the same age as the main character, 38 years old, and he looked at him and he said he had everything, but there was more. It just struck him how, from a secular standpoint, he had everything, but there was an emptiness to it that was there that had to be addressed. And, he came to find what the everything was really about was very different. The cover, if you see the cover on it, it's a cathedral actually in Ireland. And the rose window on there kind of gives you a lot of the central part of, until we put Christ the God in the middle and then build our priorities and our life around that, nothing else seems to work. Nothing else seems to satisfy. So that journey of this main character from being a very successful salesman in the high-tech world in Boston to finding out the impact that this has had on his relationship and his life, and, really finding out what true friendship and love is all about on that journey, and also finding out truths about his past that he thought he knew and found out, things were different. So there's a lot of surprises in the story as well. So when I had talked to Michael Levine in the Office of Evangelization and Discipleship, he was nice enough to give me an hour, and he he said this is the type of book that kind of fits in with the new evangelization that's looking for, new artists, new methods and expressions. How do you get to people today through different avenues in ways that they might, be open to, they won't sit down maybe and have someone talk to them or preach to them or something about it, but they're willing to read a story in a very safe environment and said, I never knew this before. And, I have a older brother who's been into his faith, but he said, no one ever taught me this before. So I tried to really take from some of the great minds out there and faith leaders, I think, within the Catholic faith, and a lot of jewels of wisdom that they have, and try to weave this into this story in a way that made it much more effective.
And it is a fascinating way you did bring that together, and I got a kick out of, if that's the best way to express it, where there were parts where there would be a scene, and this would be the part where you would come in and almost give a teaching. This is what we believe as Catholics. This is why we believe, through the characters, and then the story would continue. But it was really this fascinating thing that it wasn't glossed over. It was well, this is why we believe. This is how we believe, and does literally through the characters. And one like the Father Tom is instructing someone else, but also you're instructing the reader at the same time.
Yeah, and I thought was important was that friendship that he built. That the questions were asked of him rather than him coming at someone with him. So there was a curiosity there. Well, why do you believe that? And in true friendship, answering the question out of love rather than feeling like it's coming at you. And I've had friends that are atheists, people that are not in the Catholic faith or even friendly to faith, read the book and said they didn't feel at all like it was preachy, and they really enjoyed it and learned a lot. And so that meant a lot that people that were outside the faith could read it and find that it wasn't coming at them in that way. And then I've had so many people around the world, and I think one of the blessings for me for this, this writing experience has been all the people I've met, and humbly hearing, the impact it's had on them in ways that either changed their lives or maybe some direction or something they hadn't thought about before or heard before. So they got something out of it. And meeting, in these interviews, people like yourself has been, quite a joy and I think a gift as well.
You really do bring in that the real life situations. The characters are not people who have lived these perfect lives, and all of a sudden they just happen to be how can you just put it, the old, even though I haven't seen the movie in years, so I may have a bad analogy on this, the Bells of St. Mary, which I think I was in the Philippines when I saw that movie back in the Navy. But that the idea of which were great stories, but you bring this into the modern age. I know anyone reading this book is going to know someone just like David. They're going to maybe know someone like Father Tom. They're going to know those situations. And even though one of the things that pops up towards the end when you see the relationship with his father, and I won't give out too much here, but I'm here in Alston, and just down the street from us is, I think it's called Walter Schroeder Corner. It's Walter Schroeder Square. And I remember when Walter Schroeder was shot as he was a police officer, and it was back in 1970, 1967. And I remember that, and I connected right away with that corner, which is down the street from me. My memories of the story, I grew up, my father was a writer for the Globe, and the story that you see, that connection you see in the main character.
Yeah, that's neat. Yeah, I just, I loved a lot of the research on Boston. I've lived in the Boston area my whole life, and, I had a lot of people that have had memories of that, or don't live in Boston, love feeling like they got into those neighborhoods and the people that lived there. And it was kind of a neat part of the story. As you mentioned, the teachings, you try to weave things in interesting ways, whether it's one-on-one conversations on the basketball court or pub debates or something. So not like, you're doing it in a way that doesn't work. I was told at the beginning you can't do this type of book where you could weave in kind of the fullness of the faith into a story in a way that worked, right? And so I kind of felt still pulled to do it and the challenge to do it. And I think the Holy Spirit helped, like I said, to make that effective. And I think the response from people has encouraged me in a way that it was successful, and at least being a small part of the mission of trying to proclaim the faith that Christ was willing to die for us to share with us. And I think we're called to do that. And as you mentioned when you said, how'd you get into the writing? And, for years I had a family and working and going to school at night and things like that. But I always felt like there's more I should be doing to share the faith. And there's a hesitancy in a lot of places in the culture today to have a conversation, in a secular business. You don't generally go there with a lot of people unless you have a close friendship. So it makes it tough today not only to share the faith, but I think it makes it even tougher for younger people today to even hear about it. Like, where do you ever hear about it or encounter someone that you have a conversation with? So I noticed that sometimes when people meet with probably people like yourself, priests, there's a hunger to want to talk about their faith. So they're going to go right there because they got someone they know that is receptive to it. So hopefully,
or we become the lightning rods to everything they don't like about the church. You're listening to the voice of St. Anthony Parish from Allston, Massachusetts, right here on WROL 950 AM, 100.3 FM. And you can also hear us at CatholicAudiomedia.com. I want to call your attention to Catholic TV, which offers great faith-filled, family-friendly programming 24 hours a day. You can find your cable channel at www.getcatholictv.com, and you can watch online on the free apps or check out the YouTube channel. Daily Mass, Rosaries, the Divine Mercy Chaplet, and the Our Lady of Perpetual Help Novena are all available online and on demand. Check out CatholicTV.com. Well, we're going to be back tomorrow with the third part of our interview with Jim Sano. Looking forward to that. In the meantime, have yourself a blessed day, and we will see you at 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. In Cristo vivimos.